All right, we are live, Dave. We're live. It is we are at Serverless Office Hours. Look at us, Dave. We match.
Yeah,
Dave,
look at this.
my green screen foo's a little off, but yeah.
Oh,
No, we're the wrong way. Hang on a second. There it is, right there. So yeah, for those of you who are watching, I apologize now, and for anything about ready to come up. But we're glad you're here. I am not Julian Wood. You'll notice that by the lack of long, pretty hair. Although he can't grow one of these. So Julian is actually keynoting Serverless Days Belfast today. So, and they are, Dave, do you know where they're meeting?
Game of Thrones studio.
Exactly. They're in the Game of Thrones studio. Julian is currently serving coffee with Serverless Espresso in the Game of Thrones studio. I'm wildly jealous. Very cool. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. For those who don't know, again, my name is Eric Johnson. I'm a principal developer advocate here at AWS. I used to do this show a whole bunch. Julian and I swapped out, but now it's all Julian's. But I step in sometimes to help out. And Dave, tell them who you are, what you do, and why we even hired you. Last one, don't worry about.
I'm not sure about the last one. I'm Dave, Dave Boyne. So find me on kind of Twitter, Boyne123. But so I'm a developer advocate. Yeah, I work with Eric on the Serverless EDA team. Just kind of primarily focused and interested in EDA, event-driven architectures, serverless architectures, just curious about it all and just dive into it all and kind of share everything I got, learn as I go. And it seems to kind of resonate with folks. So it's great. Love it. Right. And why hide me? I'm not sure. I think, Good question.
Yeah, we ask ourselves a lot. But no, Dave does a great job. We love Dave. He's killing it. If you're following it all on some of the ServerlessLand updates that we're doing, those are all Dave. Dave's an actual developer. The rest of us just have it in our title. He is actually a developer and does a fantastic job and has done a lot of work around building out, make it easier for developers to get information about it. Hey, Dave, did you see my shirt?
Yeah, look at that. Lambda.
There you go. All right. Yeah. My girls say sheepda. That makes no sense. But yes. But anyway, so Dave's been big about that. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today. We'll get to that to a little bit. But Dave, did you see the announcement I put out on Twitter this morning?
Is this a SAM announcement?
Yes.
Is it a Rust announcement?
That's right. So the answer, it's really a yes or no question, Dave. I didn't really expect you to ask me questions coming back. But
that's how we do
those
it.
of you who didn't catch it, we've had two announcements in SAM over the last week. Really cool. One is on the connectors, where if you're not familiar with connectors, they help with IAM. Have you used the connectors at all, Dave? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
They allow you to say, hey, I'm going to have this resource talk to this resource. I can give it read or write, and then we'll do all the IAM in the background, which is very helpful because IAM can be tough, and we want to help you make sure it's secure and least privileges, things like that. So one, we've added where those are part of a resource, and you can target multiple other resources. So one source can target multiple targets. I'm using target a lot. And then the other one this morning was building in Rust. So super excited. Natively in SAM, you can now build Rust applications. So check that out. There's a tweet on it. If you update to the latest SAM, you do an initialization. There's now a Rust runtime, and there's a hello world and all that good stuff. All right, so we have a question already, Dave. This is a question for you. What's your programming language of choice when it comes to serverless deployments?
Wow, I got about 13, 14-year JavaScript backgrounds. Has to be TypeScript, JavaScript for me. Okay. And CDK for me, actually. So
okay. So all right, so you're a CDK guy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we enjoyed having you on the show. You have a good day. All right. No, I'm just kidding. No, I love CDK as also. This is not a SAM CDK battle. The reality is, and I said this on my sessions with Sam last week, just use a framework, man. I see too many people still trying to hand roll their own serverless applications, deploying with, through the console, things like that. Just use a framework. CDK is a fabulous framework. I don't use it. I can't spell it. So it's a tough one. But no, I do use CDK. I use both CDK and SAM. I've even been known to dabble a little bit in Terraform. And I'm looking at some of these. Have you seen some of the this is not what we're here to talk about, but we're going to come around. But have you seen some of these new ones like Winglang that's come out and Amped? Jeremy Daly's over there, Amped, where they're trying to do more infrastructure in code. So those are kind of cool. Have you seen these coming out, Dave?
Yeah, I've seen you've got a nice YouTube series coming out, right? Sam with friends.
This actually was not a shameless plug.
Is a plug.
I just realized it totally sounded like that. It wasn't. That is coming, I promise. So stick around for my shameless plug later. But I was just more, So, all right. So let's jump to what we're going to talk about today. And Dave, so we're going to talk about EDA visuals, right? And so tell us what EDA visuals are and why you started doing it.
Yeah, cool. So EDA visuals. So I started it, I think it was last month, January, but ways to visualize event architectures. So I'll start from the top, actually. I started to, for the last couple of years, read a lot of event architecture stuff, consume a lot, look around a lot, write codes and various other things. And I started actually a new learning method, which is called Zettelkasten method. And I'm not sure if anyone's watching, you've used that before. I'd love to hear your feedback on that.
Wait, the idea is, what's it called?
Zettelkasten method.
Zettelkasten. I think you're making that up. I've never heard that. I've never heard. What is that?
Yeah, I could make anything up.
You could. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that sounds. Yeah, I'm using it. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'll be really honest.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Is that something? Tolls is typing in Zettelkasten.
Zettelkasten. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is, so when you consume notes, when you consume or you're learning something, the typical thing is to do read it, learn it, chuck it out of your head and whatever, and kind of forget about it. That's me anyway. So this kind of method, I get to read something, write what they call literature notes, which is like in your own words, what have you read, what have you learned? And then from that, you create permanent notes. So review your literature notes. So these could be like 5 or 10 or whatever they are. Review these and create permanent notes around the things you're learning or your thoughts that you're having. So an example would be like, today I've done a visual on change data capture, which is just on the backlog of visuals that I wanted to do. But I have a permanent note already, and I have literature notes that link to that, where I've read that from. So an example would be some books that I'm reading. I talk about change data capture and what it means, and different kind of links in these different books and my thoughts. And then what I do, where visuals come from actually, was I started to visualize my own thoughts for my own Zettelkasten library. And then what I did one day is actually kind of decided to share one on Twitter. And then, people seem to love them. People seem to love visualizations. They're great ways of sharing content, I guess. And actually, funny enough, I got kind of this book here, my notebook actually, and I can't see it. Look at that. I was kind of blurring into it. There we go. So this one here is blurring into the wall.
That was awesome. I literally thought you jumped off screen. Hey, Dave's gone, so I'm going to talk about Zettelkasten. Yeah. All right. So show us your book again, but don't fail, please.
That'd be fun, actually. See you later.
Have a good one. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, this my kids were playing in some kind of soft play here in the UK. And I was kind of drawing out this visualization in my notebook, and I was like, this is all about like, what was it about? Technical stuff, architecture stuff, and data and EDA and how they all kind of come together and my thoughts around it. And then I decided to do a visualization using a tool that I'm going to share later, and kind of shared it online, and then kind of got this feedback. And then I thought, I'm going to quickly hack together a website where I can have a space where I can just chuck these up, because I'm learning anyway. I'm consuming this content. As I'm consuming and write my permanent notes, I'm drawing it up anyway for me. So I'm just going to share my permanent notes with other people. And that's what I do. So every day, it's pretty much I try and do one a day at the moment. And today I've done change data capture. Yesterday I've done the splitter pattern. Before that I've done batch processing versus event streaming, which I will go into today. And that's the process. So consume, think about it, write in my own words. What did I learn from it? What can I share about it? How can I help others with it? And people seem to love it. So
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's where it started.
We're getting a lot of interest on them. It's funny, and I don't have any clever name for it. I don't know if you saw, I was putting them up on the screen. Tolis, and I'm sure I'm just destroying your name. I apologize. He was saying that he said Zytocasting, and it favors composition over inheritance. Does that make sense to you? Do you understand what he's saying?
Yeah, what, with the Zettelcasting, you mean? Yeah. So you kind of linking. You kind of put your notes together, and you kind of link to other notes. So I have like a permanent note again. Let's say it was on Sam with Rust, right?
Okay.
Today, so I'd have a permanent note on that. Why is that important? Why is that important to me? And then what I could link back to is like things like the release notes. Maybe I read the release notes and I found something cool and interesting, so I can link back. So you kind of, your patterns, they're kind of like patterns and just blocks of information that you can kind of just build up of other different blocks.
I'd like to call out something really important, though, as we're talking about this. Tolis said that I have a perfect accent, first of all, and pronunciation, second of all. So in the accent contest here on today's show, I have won already. So we're getting a lot of complaints that people don't understand what you're saying, but I am doing just fine. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
It's a Greek name, by the way, which I only know because Tolis is telling me here in the notes. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate it. So in the visuals, it's really interesting because honestly, without the fancy name, I do the same thing. I don't understand a concept until I've visualized it in my head, until I've drawn it out. And you've seen some of the videos I've done, and and we've sat in meetings and where we kind of, if you explain it to me, well, this it does this, and then A goes to B, and then there's all these weird names, stuff like that. Literally, and you can watch my eyes. I kind of, I don't understand it, because, and in this, like any technology, there's a lot of complexity, and sometimes to give folks more features, we add more complexity. And so it's our job, and Dave, you're doing a great job at this, it's our job to break this down into consumable chunks. And that's where I think these visuals come in really handy.
I think so, yeah. I think, as I was saying, when I kind of first started, it was literally porting it over to a permanent note. And that was it, as into the brick wall. It's very nice notebook. It's good, isn't it? So I can do it again.
Yeah.
It's magic. Oh, wait.
Yeah, there it is.
No, it's not working. I can't do it now.
Yeah, it's a
shame. But this, as you said, the bite size information, I think, is really interesting because people don't have time, right? We kind of strap for time a lot of the time. So what can I learn in 5 minutes? Boom, here's understanding change data capture. What would be really interesting to hear from folks actually is, so this is just about event-driven architectures, right? Without too much going into technology, but more about the practices and principles and patterns that are out there. But also we can do this around what I've been thinking about recently, is around serverless stuff, right? Serverless services. So give me bite-sized visualizations on Lambda. Yeah. Give me bite-sized visualizations on DynamoDB. Give me bite-sized information about SAM. API gateway.
Yeah, there you go. So no, I agree. And I love what you said just a minute ago. What can I learn in 5 minutes? And real quick, just so it's like, these are just two talking heads. And that's not usually what this show is. Usually we have code up by now. Can you share your screen again? Let's get a visual up there so people can see what we're even talking about.
Sure,
before Dave fades away into the back to the wall again. So, but I love that idea of what can I learn in 5 minutes? Because as developers, we are just, how often do you, I know in our role, we don't get very much time to just sit down and learn. A lot of times I will actually block in my schedule. I have what I call no meeting Monday, and Mondays I try to learn, and usually the only, Dave interrupts me on Mondays, but usually I just try to hide because we don't have time to learn. And so this idea of what can I learn in 5 minutes is really critical. All right, I'm gonna bring this up. Tell us what we're looking at here, and then we might want to. What I'd love for you to do, Dave, is kind of show some examples of how you're thinking about this and stuff like that. And then can we kind of talk to the process? You might maybe show kind of what you're doing. I'm not going to ask you to make one on the fly, but I'd like you to make one on the fly. So
sure. So we're looking at EDA visuals, which is hosted on ServerlessLand.
Do you have a short code to this?
I don't know.
I'll make one right now. Don't you worry.
Cool. There we go.
I got you.
So this is a collection of visualizations to help you learn about event-driven architectures. Why? Because I'm interested in them and I'm doing it anyway. So I thought I'd just share these notes with everyone else. So as you scroll down, you can actually see the first one I started on, which was this one. So they're ordered by date and time when I kind of create them. So I started with actually producer and consumer responsibilities. So if you go inside there, hopefully you can kind of see this, or you can follow along in the browser yourself. But producer and consumer responsibilities. So first of all, I create the visuals. So take my notes, think about what are producers and consumers' responsibilities, and this is kind of, I think, a big question when we talk about EDA applications, because it's often a question it kind of gets overlooked, I feel. So it's just good to summarize. Producer raises an event, the producer owns the schema. Now, even that itself, people could argue, does the producer own the schema? Does the consumer own the schema? Right? You see some interesting things here. Manages the payload changes, establishes contracts. We've got filters and rules. You can kind of read it yourselves. Right. And then what I try and do underneath them, well, this one was actually the first one, so I didn't really do it that well. Is also go into each part and describe more thoughts with resources. And I think that's the key, really, is most of these visuals, especially the newer ones, like today's one, I kind of chunk it up into each different part. So understanding change data capture. Okay, what is that? Well, it's listening to changes. So you can see this down here. Okay, so we have a change and we can react to change, which is really, really cool. If you're new to that, or even if you're not too new to that, it's still a cool pattern. Yeah. We can keep data in sync across our microservices and across our bounded context. And you start thinking, hey, hang on, Dave, what's bounded context? What are you talking about? So what I tend to do in the visuals too is, as you scroll down, these are just bullet points of notes, my thoughts, whatever, things I find, link out to other things that you may find useful. So, here you can say, listen to data capture allows us to listen to changes in a database. You can react to these changes and trigger downstream consumers. Yeah, this is great. An example of this is actually DynamoDB streams. So you can actually react, have a stream, react to data, getting inserted or new data and having things react. Another thing down here, keeping data in sync. Okay, so you're talking about boundaries. What are boundaries? And there are links here to go over to other visuals and other information and resources. So kind of going back to Zettel casting, remember I consume all these resources, kind of connect the connections in my head and think about this stuff and kind of make it available for people. That's what I kind of try to make clear with this design in general, which is kind of, it looks like it's handwritten, because that's the kind of feel that I want to give off to people consuming this content. Is these are just some thoughts and some research that I've done, and here it is in raw format, take it or leave it as it is, right? And then down at the bottom, I have extra resources. So this is a great book I'm reading at the moment, Designing Data Intensive Applications. This has great insights into streaming, whole chapters into streaming and around data, change data capture. So really recommend checking that out. So here's a link to the book. Down here, we have understanding bounded context. Well, why do you want to know about bounded context? What is bounded context? Okay, well, let's click on this. Hopefully the link works. That'll take us to another visual. Okay, bounded context with event architectures. So you start creating this network and this link of different kind of visuals. And everything here, the idea is in 5 minutes, you can scroll, okay, I might have learned something. That's cool. See you later. Job done. And that's where visuals are, and what I kind of done under the hood, if anyone's kind of interested in making their own visuals and things like that, is everything you hear, I kind of used, these are just markdown files. So every morning I try and read something, I'll try and consume different kind of content, and I try and do a visual a day. And all that is for me is just a new markdown file and a new image. And then, so I create the image, create the markdown file, put the content in there, give it a quick review and publish it on Twitter. And the interesting thing I've seen what happen with people in general, like community online, is just people, I think this pattern, this format really resonates with folks. So, it's just interesting to see the engagement there and people learning and people saying, and giving feedback on that. And I think it's just a great way of learning. So I just continue to do it. It takes me 15, 20 minutes a day, create one, post it, that's it. Help people out.
There's not a single piece of content I generate that takes me 15 to 20 minutes. I'm just going to lay that out right now. Okay, so what I want to do, I'd like to show how you do it, but I want to pause here for a moment. We have a couple of questions. As always, this is Serverless Office Hours, so we answer any serverless questions. So we've got some coming in, and one I'll grab, and the other I'm going to pass to you. The first one, a little bit back, is this one. It says, would an API gateway like GlueEdge or similar be an essential tool to utilize in serverless architectures? I'm going to be real honest. I'm not familiar with GlueEdge, but yes, an API in general is an absolute essential part to this. We have API Gateway. Amazon API Gateway is our main API Gateway product at AWS. And I do a lot of work around that. That is the front door to most applications. Any public application needs a front door, especially serverless applications. API Gateway is well suited to handling, and one, it's not just the front door. Hey, here's how you get to my service. It's also where you handle authorization. It's where you handle throttling, caching, routing, validation. It's more than just a doorway. It is a doorway with a lock and a bar on it if you need it. It is, there's a lot you can do there. So yeah, it's absolutely something essential, and I'll follow up on that if there's more questions. We have another question, Dave. I'm gonna give to you. Says, is it possible to maintain a data ledger of events coming in EDA? If so, what DB services how you doing? Is recommended to do so?
Yeah, it's quite a common pattern, to be honest. I'd recommend looking at event sourcing as an example. So event sourcing is a ledger of events in your architecture.
Do you have a pattern for this, or a drawing, or a visual?
I might do, yeah. Let's have a look. Sourcing, events as data. This is the event sourcing really pattern. But the idea is you collect your events come in, and you collect them inside a database. So I'll give you an example, serverless example of this. If you're using EventBridge or DynamoDB, you can create a target on EventBridge, so a consumer of EventBridge, and just store all your events. Or you could use the archive functionality of that of EventBridge to do that. But if you look at event sourcing and dive deeper, there's some very interesting patterns that come out and that people are using. An example is, and if you talk to the purists around event sourcing, the idea is your events are your source of data. So in theory, you can derive state from your events in a particular view. An example of this would be if Eric is purchasing some squirrels from a farm. I don't know why he would.
Keep it up, Dave. Keep it up.
Yeah,
I would go put the outfit on right now if you don't stop.
Yeah, he would. We could track all the events that Eric's doing on the website. We could track all the events that Eric is touching in the database. Everything Eric's doing from the moment he enters the farm to when he leaves the farm, even in his car, I guess we could track. But we use this information to create a history of pineapple on pizzas. Yeah, this is it. Pineapple on pizzas.
Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate your help.
Yeah. But I had a good saying once, and it's really good about events and databases, which resonates with me, which is like a database stores the state of what's happening. So if you think about a board game, for example, you could query the database and get the current state of the board game, whereas events will tell you the story of the board game, right? So if me and Eric were playing a board game right now, we could go from where it started all the way to the end and who made each move. So I kind of blabbed on there, but I would look at an example would be EventBridge and Dynamo, and I'd look at event sourcing there if you're curious to know more.
The other interesting thing, and it's a little different, but built into EventBridge, and this isn't the same thing you were talking about, but I think it's worth mentioning, is the ability to archive and replay events. Mm-hmm. And so if that's kind of what you're looking for, it's like I need to be able to replay from a point in time this amount of events. Because honestly, why are we keeping these? Why are we archiving? Well, it's for the chance of having a replay where the state was at any given moment. And so that is built into EventBridge, very helpful as well. I think Ben Ellerby does a lot of talk around this kind of stuff too. Is worth checking out if you're not familiar with Ben Ellerby. So excellent. Stephen Box, who's hassling me about pineapple pizza. I just want you to know that last night we ordered pizza and my daughter got a full pineapple pizza. It was really rough. But yeah, it was tough. But you had asked about the link. Hopefully you got it, the s12d.com ED visuals. I posted it in each of the social channels before I showed it. So if you didn't get the link, just hit me. You know how to find me on Twitter. I know you do. I'll probably post it on Twitter as well. Okay, we have another question here. Says, if there are 1,000 of Eric's, will the DB server still be able to make these many transaction details?
The 100,000 of Eric's. If there's 100,000 of Eric's,
I'm not sure if he's dogging me or they are dogging me, or if they're actually asking a question about DynamoDB. I'm going to go with the second. If you go with Dave's pattern, yes, you can. DynamoDB has an incredibly powerful and fast IO, and it's made to handle. There's a little startup. I don't know if y'all have heard of them. They're called Amazon.com. And they run a Cyber Monday and all these things. And the database that powers that is this exact database that Dave's talking about. DynamoDB has just massive IO and can handle the transactions. Now, if it's 1,000 me's, you never know. It maybe it can handle it, but it doesn't want to. So there's that. So, all right, we had another question come in here. Okay, I'm gonna put this in here. Okay, so is there a secure way of dealing with failed Saga in ServerlessLand so that we can make sure that everything gets rolled back? I'm looking at you, Dave.
Right, sorry. It's a secure way of dealing with failed Saga in ServerlessLand. Is there
something? I read this as, what if something goes bad? What if something goes wrong?
With what in particular?
With the deploy, and I'm going to say the name of my Ixonator. Feel free to chime in if we're not getting what you're asking. But I would say we use Amplify to deploy everything. So we host and Amplify hosting, and so if there's an issue, we can roll back. Yeah, we can always roll back to a previous version. We also use GitHub, so we can use GitHub to roll back. Dave, do you read this a different way?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, how do you read it?
No, I've read it. How do you do a failed Saga in the serverless land, not the serverless land? So in serverless in general, how do you deal with failed sagas and kind of roll back?
Yeah, I really misread that.
Yeah, it took me a while. I think I got that. Rolling back changes in failed. I guess it's kind of step function saga. Is that what we're talking about here? Orchestration stuff. Maybe if you give an example, we could explain.
Yeah, several of the services have the ability. I can talk about Lambda for a moment. And this is a SAM thing. It's actually built into SAM. We have what's called a safe deploy, where you can actually configure a deployment package, what's methodology that you want. You can say, look, I want 10%. I want a linear deploy of 10% every 5 minutes. And so it deploys from the current code base to a new code base, and it does all the traffic shifting and everything in the background for you. You don't have to manage any of that. If something goes wrong, the whole thing will roll back. And I actually have a presentation that I did, and I'll post a link here to where that is. And a lot of services do that with API Gateway specifically. We have what are called canary deploys where we can roll back, and that's for specific API Gateway configuration, not really the application itself. But yes, a lot of that's built in, and then there's always just the ability to override if you're using. This is why we use infrastructure as code as well. Does that help, Ixonator? And if not, be honest. We're okay with saying, no, that wasn't helpful at all. So, yeah, give us an example if we're not hitting what you want. Glad to help. All right. Until we hear more there, Dave, you going to show us how you go about this?
Sure. Yeah. So I use Exalijaw. Is that how you said it? Exalijaw. Is that what you're talking about? How we build these, right?
Yeah.
So this is the tool I kind of come across the month, which is great. So it kind of gives this hand drawing kind of feel to it, which I quite like. You can kind of do anything you want here. They have like libraries of different icons. They have like loads of open source icons, so you can use them. I tend to kind of stick to a couple, like the message queue one here, and some AWS service icons, which is really cool. But as you can see, they're kind of hand drawn. Every time I do a visual, everyone asks about the where's the tool, how do you do it?
I'm so disappointed. I really thought you did this by hand.
Oh yeah, well,
I'm just it's just no. I'm just
I
kidding.
know. No, yeah. I wish I could. I mean, they're pretty smart. And this is it. So what I tend to do, I mean, you can do any format you want. I tend to do kind of the title and the thing in the middle, and then top left, bottom right, depending on what I'm doing. This is just one of them. And then if you pay for it, I think you can get, which I do pay for it because I'm quite interested in the tool. But you can kind of see different patterns, and you can kind of group them up together. And then what you can kind of do here is just grab this and then export it at the top, and then you've got your PNG or your SVG. So these are all SVGs actually, so it's really cool. So you can kind of just grab this and kind of scale this as big as you want or as small as you want, and it will kind of try and handle that. So as you can see, we can go all the way down here, all the way up there. But the tool itself, really nice, really recommend it. If you're kind of into this kind of, into these kind of drawings, as you can see, you can do whatever you want. And then a bit of TLC on top, you can start getting some interesting kind of messaging, interesting patterns there. Yeah, I'm not sure there's much more to say about the tool.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So here, I'd like to go back, if we can. I'd like to get kind of feedback from the audience here. This is obviously not a code-heavy session where we usually are a little more in code, but more theories of how we approach things. How do you? Well, one, what do you think of Dave's work here? That's not what I'm saying, but that is what I'm saying. I want to know, what do y'all think of the short, what can I learn in 2 minutes, 5 minutes idea? And I'm going to show another one that we do, and actually something I've been working on over here in a little bit, but shows with API Gateway. And the second thing I would have you that I would ask the group to do is throw in ideas. What would you like us to show you? What are some 5-minute visuals or videos that you're dying to know about serverless? Because one of the things we're trying to cover, as well as how-tos, are concepts and visuals. Would you say visuals are more concepts than how-tos, Dave?
I think so, yeah. Just yeah, quick kind of concept. Thing is with the EDA stuff and these visuals, there's all kind of a lot of theory, a lot of patterns.
Yeah.
A lot of things I feel you kind of should know if you're exploring event architectures, but there's no reason why they couldn't be more kind of practical things, right? Or code examples or things like that. So yeah, be interested to know what people think. So one in the Obsidian combo, yeah, I bet that's great. One thing.
Do you know about this, Dave? Is this
Obsidian, yeah.
Okay.
So Obsidian, yeah, note-taking tools, which is great. But I think, I'd be curious to know, if people want or interested in, like, as I said earlier, like serverless visuals. So if you want to know about event source mapping with Lambda, yeah, in 5 minutes, go.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. I kind of always picture it as, if imagine you had a book and you could flick a book and stop and you learn something and put it down, job done. That's kind of how I see the visual stuff and the bite-sized chunks. And I think that's what kind of resonates with people. And talking about books, you can actually download. So what I decided to do, you can actually download these for free. So you can see this button down here. So click download, and this is like 80 pages of visuals offline on your computer or on your tablet, wherever you want to read them.
And you generate these every time you update it, right?
That's right, yeah.
Nice.
So I'm using, at the moment, it's using Pandoc to just create a custom PDF, and then pulls all things together. It's got a cover and pulls the visuals together, automates that, and kind of, yeah, uploads it. So if you're interested, I recommend kind of downloading that, and then you can see, you can just go at your own time offline.
Yeah, this is great. So a couple comments that I want to get to, and then I'm actually going to show one of the videos that I've been doing along the same line as an example of some of the things we have coming out. So one question we've got is, well, it's more of a statement. Get your thought on it. ServerlessLand is a cool learning project. A dictionary of server and non-server technologies gets confusing. Appreciate that. We agree. ServerlessLand has been really helpful internally, externally. It's crazy. We have internal people that reference ServerlessLand all the time. It's hard to, and I echo your thoughts. It's hard to keep up with everything. It just is. When I started, I've been here coming up on 5 years. Do you know that, Dave? That's right. In October, 5 years. That's right. This may shock you. I'm old. But and I remember when I first started, the fire hose was, I mean, it was so much. And I got to think it's got to get better. It doesn't. It's just so much. Oh, AWS moves very fast. I don't apologize for that. I love that. We move very fast. And so keeping up can be kind of tough. So, yeah, I agree. All this can get very confusing, and we're glad to help lay that out. We do have a comment. Dave, go ahead.
Just on that, I guess if you've got any recommendations on things you'd like to see or problems you're having or any content that you'd like to see, feel free to kind of share those ideas.
Yeah. 5-minute learning is great, especially in an era with TikTok is making the attention span small. I absolutely agree. I have 5 kids, and I get roughly 2 minutes with each one of them each day of attention. It's crazy, and it's not at the same time, So Dave has 2 kids, amateur.
Yeah.
But he, so speaking of which, just to prep you, I want you to talk about your project a little bit if you're willing to. Not quite yet, but you can think about it. I'm going to show this here in a minute, but if you don't want to, that's okay. Cool. What's that?
Yeah, it's cool. I can bring it up if you want.
I think it's fantastic. So I have a question from Mark. Are the image sources available as well? Dave, can they get the image sources?
The image or the visuals?
You know, the thing we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes?
They're all online. So the images are online available.
Yeah. You can grab them out of the PDF or you can just grab them straight off the site. So all right, so I'm going to play this video real quick. It's about 2 minutes long. And this shows another idea that we're doing that we'd like feedback on and to get your opinion. So here we go. When choosing a public REST API on Amazon API Gateway, developers can choose between a regional or an edge-optimized endpoint. This video clarifies the similarities and differences between these endpoint types so you as a developer can choose the right option for your work. It is important to understand that all API Gateway endpoints are regional. This means that all requests for a specific API are routed to the region the endpoint is deployed in. This remains the same for edge-optimized endpoints. The difference between these types of endpoints is in how the request is routed. For regional endpoints, the request is routed across the public internet to the regional destination. For example, I have a regional endpoint deployed in the US West 2 region. A client request from Alice Springs in the Northern Territory of Australia would need to traverse the public internet, fighting throttling, congestion, and bounces to reach my API. Edge-optimized endpoints, however, take advantage of Amazon's global edge network. This means that a request is routed to the nearest edge location, where it then uses Amazon's private network to reach the API destination. In this scenario, my client's request from Alice Springs would only travel the internet to Sydney, where it would then use the private Amazon network to reach my API in US West 2. You might be asking yourself, what's the catch? Why not always use an edge-optimized endpoint? One reason for not using edge-optimized endpoints is if you need caching at the edge. In this scenario, the data is not cached at the edge and every call is routed to the API. If your data is constantly changing, this is acceptable. However, if your data has a long time to live, or TTL, then caching the data as close to your client's location makes more sense. This can be accomplished with AWS CloudFront's edge-based caching. I cover more about caching in a later video in this series. All right, so that's another example of, Dave, you never even watched that, have you? That hurts me. No, I'm just kidding. that's another example of the short learning. This would, and I'm doing a whole series on API Gateway, and I would love to hear from you. What helps? What do you need to know? What do you want to hear about? What are these concepts? And are these short learnings working for you? And obviously any feedback we can give. So, all right, Dave, you got your screen back up. Are you can show something else there?
Well, the story thing you were talking about.
All right. So we're going to take a few minutes now. Unless we have any other questions coming in, I would like you to see what Dave's been building. These are some of the things that I think what I was blown away with is it's everyday life. How can we automate? How can we help ourselves in everyday life? And I love this story. And before you jump into it, Dave, kind of give the background of where this came in.
Yeah, sure. So this is a sidetrack from the EDA visuals, but it is an event-driven application. So I've been using Chat GD? I can never say it. Chat
GPT.
GPT.
It's a G, and then there's a P, and then right after that it's a T. So,
Thanks.
And then front of it all is a chat. So,
yeah. Okay. Thanks. I forgot it already.
My accent throwing you off?
No, it is. Yeah. But I've been using this to generate stories for my children at night, just for fun. So my kids go to bed. I have two kids, two boys. Is 8. One's 8 now. One's just turning 5. And I use this to generate rhyming stories. So I write in my phone, generate me a rhyming story on Jackson and Parker. Two brothers called Jackson and Parker is their names, and then they come up with a scene. Right, so the scene would be, wow, what do you want to do? Oh, we'll run away from a dragon in a maze on Mars or whatever. So we do that, and it generates this nice story, and the kids are super excited. So then I was thinking about all the event-driven stuff and the event-driven patterns and serverless solutions. Can I automate this every time? So every time I put them to bed, every time we go upstairs, get them to bed, my phone will give me a notification to say the story is ready. And then I took it a step further, as I do. I was like, how can I create a front end on this? And then I'm like, okay, how can I create audio for this? And then I'm like, okay, how can I create image generation for this? And I'm using S3, using EventBridge pipes, using EventBridge, SNS, and all the goodness to automate this stuff. And that's it. So I can show you some of the architecture ideas that I had, and then this final solution. So first thing I kind of...
Nope. You're right. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
That was me.
So first thing I was kind of come here and I was like, decided what to do. So I built this thing and I was like, okay, cool. So I use the EventBridge scheduler, which allows you to schedule up to 14 million schedules a month, right? For free. That's on the free tier. But it allows you to schedule and have different targets, any kind of activity that you want. So this is perfect for me. So I want to schedule some compute at 7:30 at night, every day of the week. So then I hit the Lambda. My first Lambda function will generate me a story. So what this does now is I have a DynamoDB table of characters. So this is where I put Jackson and Parker. But eventually I could be in there. Eric could be in there. Their cousins could be in there. And then I create a collection of scenes. So a scene would be a group of people are stuck on Mars and need a way home. Or it could be an adventure through scary forest or whatever it might be. So I have a collection of characters and scenes. I grab the characters and grab the scenes and I select one at random. So I grab all the characters at the moment and I select a random scene. And then I use OpenAPI to generate the story. So I get this nice story and it's all formatted weirdly and I had to do some weird formatting stuff. And then it also generates a title for the book or for the story. So anyway, so I store this in Dynamo with a TTL on it. So we can store things in Dynamo with a time to live. So I do 2 days because once the kids have heard the story, they probably don't want to hear the story again because they're bored. So they want a new story. So I'm just like, okay, I'll clean up the mess after myself and put TTL on it. Another thing I decided to do is create a token, right? So I don't want authentication, or if you want to do this yourself, you might want authentication. But I use a token on a URL to say, okay, if you have this URL, this particular token, you can see it. Why I've done that is because if Eric is in the story with pineapples one day with my children, which
I know won't happen,
then I can send it to Eric and he can view the story, and it's the same kind of thing. And then what I do is what I did on this version is I pipe that new story to EventBridge pipes down to SNS to then use the email notification on my phone. So my phone will say, hey, Dave, there's a new thing out. Check this link. I've changed it recently because what I wanted to do too is actually fan out with EventBridge and actually generate some images using DALL-E, which is an AI image generation for the story, and also use Amazon Polly to create audio for the story, just in case I can't be bothered to read it out myself, right? So what happens, kind of summarizing this, the story is created, it goes to EventBridge pipe directly into EventBridge. So I'm erasing a story created event. I fan out to multiple consumers here to say, okay, you generate the images and you generate the audio. Now, the interesting thing here is any of these fail, the application will still load. I just won't have an image, right? I just won't have an audio here. I can still load the story. That's a very interesting pattern that I was kind of interested in there. Then what happens at the end, I write back to DynamoDB. And then what I'm going to do, I've not done this bit yet, but write back to EventBridge to SNS at the end. Anyway, it's a lot of talking. Let's see it in action. So literally just now, I've triggered a story. It takes about 5 to 10 seconds to create based on the API that I'm hitting. And this is one we just got. So I created this UI, and this will be hosted in the story ID with the thing on the end. And this is all generated. So it says the epic tale of Parker and Jackson. So this is the DALL-E image. So what it does is it takes the title and the scene and the characters and creates an image for me. So I have no idea what that would be. This one looks safe for work, so I could show this. And then what happens is down here, I kind of render it out on the screen. So we have Parker and Jackson, two best friends, you know, as you can kind of read here. What I did too is I put in the background a nice book, CSS book, and this kind of gradient fill to make it look half decent. And then what I do is I also use Polly to read out the story in a childlike voice, right? So I selected, I think it was Joey or something that sounded kind of like a child, to render that out. Now, also what I do here is when you use Polly, you have the MP3, but you need to store it somewhere. So I store these in Lambda, but I don't want to make them, I don't want to make my bucket public. So I create signed URLs. So a signed URL lasts for 2 hours on this item and 2 hours on this item, or was it 2 days? I can't remember. What that means is once the expiry is gone, then this image and this audio file can no longer be played from my S3 bucket. So anyway, I don't know if the audio will work here, but let me know if it does. Can you hear that?
No, we can't hear it.
All right.
Yeah. Are you in the link, or are you in the main? Because you can share an audio. Share screen, just share the video directly. Oh no, you don't have the audio directly.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's all right.
But just imagine they're reading it out. And
yeah.
That's it. You know, so it's just an example of a event-driven architecture, serverless architecture built. And I'm hoping to be honest, I'm kind of wrapping it up a bit. It's kind of just a bit of a side project at the moment. I want to create some architecture diagrams, some README files, and then this will all be open source. And all you need is an open AI API key, and you can try it out yourself.
See, when he first told me about this, because I said earlier I have 5 kids, and my youngest, I have 2 girls, are my youngest. And I mean, all my kids is, Dad, tell us a story. And for a long time, I tried. I'm fairly creative, to make it and stuff like that. But you just run out of ideas. And so my kids come to me and say, hey, tell us a story. And I say, no. And Dave's kids come and say, tell us a story. And he writes this. So good on you. When he showed this to me a couple of weeks ago, I was absolutely blown away. And that's why we let him stay after the pineapple jokes. So thanks for showing that. Just kind of an idea of we don't just talk about serverless. We use it all the time. We use event-driven architecture all the time. Daily, we're in building things. And so very cool. We have a few minutes. So if there's any questions coming, I want to make sure you saw that comment. I'll put it back up, Dave.
For me, using a description of this architecture. Yeah. Wow, look at that.
There you go. That's pretty cool. All right,
awesome.
And the picture is pretty cool looking too.
Yeah. Another quick thing people might be interested in too is this that was launched last week, right? So I decided to just create a search, index all the resources on ServerlessLand for people to search for, right? And just I am a consumer, I kind of dog food ServerlessLand, right? So I help build it and maintain it with the team that we have. But I use it all the time. I use it for patterns. I use it to explore CDK patterns or SAM patterns or whatever it might be. I use it as my go-to. I honestly do. But I kind of wanted a way to quickly search for it. So now what I do is index all that material. So an example would be, so you can come here. So this is serverlessland.com/search, and you can write like SQS with Event Bridge. Yeah. And then we can press enter.
Spelling counts. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what we get here is we get blogs, patterns, repository, snippets, videos, and workflows. And then you can found 138 results. And you can see as an example, I've got Python, .NET examples, Node.js. I've got pattern, all sorts. So if I click off patterns, what do we get? We get some videos we can watch here. If we click off videos, do we get anything? We get blogs around this. So it's another cool way. And if you go back here, you can say like with CDK, see if that works. And CDK comes up there with an example. So if you click view pattern, then if you're interested in that, click view pattern, it takes you directly to the pattern itself, where you can kind of explore.
I love this because I'll take that URL. I have people ask me all the time, hey, I need to learn about event bridge pipes. Where do I start? Search event bridge pipes. I actually just do pipes. Gives me more specific, and send that link up in the URL. And these are great starting places for this. So if you have people asking you, this is a really good place to start.
Yeah. If you got, again, any more tools, what I'm trying to do, what I'm exploring at the moment, actually thinking about doing, is actually a VS Code extension that allow you to search for this stuff inside VS Code. So if you're busy writing a CDK pattern and you want to learn about Lambda or whatever it might be, DynamoDB, for example, why not be able to search in VS Code directly and open up the browser? So I don't have to leave my kind of thing. So these are things I'm exploring. But if you've got any ideas around how we can utilize this content, or make it more accessible, feel free to reach out to us.
Bottom line, I don't know if you've ever heard the statistic. I know probably, Dave, you have, but it's like 90%, 95% of what AWS builds is built on customer recommendation and customer needs. And this is the same with ServerlessLand. We are absolutely wanting to hear what y'all need and what we can build. And ServerlessLand was really cool. James and Ben did a lot of building on ServerlessLand, and then Dave came in and it just exploded. So well done on you, Dave. And that's about the only nice thing you'll ever hear me say. From me a lot. Really well done. With that, here's the shameless plug I promised you earlier. This Thursday at 11:30 Mountain Time, 10:30 Pacific, I'll be doing sessions with Sam and friends. If you're a Terraform developer and you want to build serverless, I highly encourage you to join us. Anton Babinko, and I'm sure I'm slaughtering that name, except for my toll list says my accent's great, so probably I'm not. He's going to be joining me. He was really quintessential in helping us build in kind of the Terraform support. It is kind of in the beginning stages, but it does allow local development, a lot of things like that. But he's been doing serverless deployment with serverless development with Terraform for quite some time. So if you want some tips and tricks and how to work with that, man, I heavily encourage you. Again, 10:30 Pacific, 11:30 Mountain. We always record everything, so it'll be on YouTube. And so, I agree with this, Dave. Really enjoyed hearing the GPT workflow. Great work. Cool. Very cool. Always fun to show those kinds of things. So with that, Dave, you have any shameless plugs you need to throw out? Okay, well, we're done.
Shameless plugs. I don't know. Not really. Just if you've got any kind of, if you want to know more about EDA stuff or any kind of content or stuff you need help with or any ideas on tools, serverless tools or anything, just reach out to us, right? Let people love the story stuff. So keep an eye out. Actually, I'm going to open source that, and then feel free to use that. It's great. My kids love it, so hopefully other people's will find that useful. But if you've got any other ideas for this AI generation stuff on serverless, let's do it. Let's build some examples, but no plugs really. Just enjoy it all. Hope it's all useful.
Yes, sounds good. So Serverless Office Hours will be back next Tuesday. We're here every week. Julian will be back. to tell us his adventures in Game of Thrones, and so see how that went. And with that, we will say goodbye until Thursday, because I know you'll all be here on Thursday. And we'll see you later. Dave, thanks for coming and really just showing off a lot. So we appreciate you. I don't know what you're doing, but okay, yeah, I get the wrong. Okay. Yeah, I need to hit in broadcast as fast as possible. Advanced concepts on DynamoDB. Okay. Dave, are you writing that down? I don't see you writing that down, but he's going to write that down. So,
yeah, I'll pass it to you. I'll pass it to you, Eric, to build.
That'll work. All right. Y'all have a great weekend, a week. I guess just Tuesday. We'll see you later.
Can I fade into the background?
That'd be great. We're